Welcome to this introduction to the new ideas that characterized the so-called modernist age. Many books call this, which was the beginning of the 20th century, the age of anxiety, borrowing actually from the title of a long dramatic poem by British poet William Oden. This poem was published in 1947, and it looks back to what happened in the early 1920s and 30s. In any case, borrowing this title, we are going to tackle the ideas and issues that characterized the early 20th century. So there was a flood of new ideas that sort of created a revolution in terms of ideas and philosophy to what was considered the certain ideas of the Victorians. This meant, for the Victorians, the impossibility to replace old values with new ones. That is, their values, their ideas, were subverted. Their old predictable universe was shaken off. And I'm speaking about family, wealth, optimism, political hegemony. Remember the colonial empire. And in this way, the Victorians started to have to miss any reference point, and as a consequence, they were deprived of their own identity as leaders of the world, as being at the center of any movement around them. These new ideas came mainly from different fields of knowledge: psychology, philosophy, physics, and anthropology. In parentheses, you'll see the names of the people who gave their major contributions to their own fields. Let's start from psychology, which of course features Freud, but also William James, American psychologist, brother of famous Henry James, the novelist, who in Principles of Psychology, published in 1890, theorized the so-called stream of consciousness. The stream of consciousness, as you may already know, develops in two levels, the speech level and the pre-speech level. At speech level, the stream of consciousness, which is the entire range of human mental activities, can be communicated, and it can be communicated with words. This is expressed in literature, mainly in the psychological novel. For example, the novel of Henry James. At the pre-speech level, there is no communication basis, and the stream of consciousness is not logically ordered. It is not controlled rationally. This is what characterizes the stream of consciousness fiction, the fiction of Virginia Woolf, of Henry James. So the novelists explore what starts the mental process, and they analyze how it works. So, behind, more than that, Freud in 1900 really created a revolution of the way we conceive the human mind. With his interpretation of dreams, published in 1900, he theorized the existence of a part of us, the unconscious, which is a hidden and deep level of behavior, which we cannot access rationally, but only through dreams, as he said, through the interpretation of dreams. And the other theories that characterizes his writings is that of the libido and of its demands. Demands in terms of what the libido, that is, our sexual urge, wants from us. The instruments the psychologist, or actually the psychoanalyst, has to analyze the unconscious and the libido are the interpretation of dreams, as we said, and the free association of thoughts. This is because there is the simultaneous existence of different levels of consciousness and subconsciousness. And so we can associate them through different images and thoughts. Carl Gustav Jung, a student of Freud, went far ahead as to theorize the existence not only of a personal unconscious, but also of a collective unconscious. It's the idea of a cultural memory that contains the myths and the beliefs of a certain group, of a certain cultural group. So the group is important, and it adds, it does not replace the personal unconsciousness, and it works on a symbolical level. So the psychologists and the poets can analyze or can understand the importance of mythical patterns, the importance of symbols for a certain people, because they belong to that group. In philosophy, Nietzsche, in his Also sprach Zarathustra, published in 1883, said two important things. He maintained that God is dead. So basically he said that religion was losing its power, and you remember how much religion was important for the Victorians, and that man at this point finds himself lost and confused, also because saying that God is dead implies that God did exist, and now really there is no reference point anymore. And also he theorized the famous and infamous idea of the Superman, implying a strong belief in human power, and a strong belief in the fact that human power can improve itself. Henri Bergson, French philosopher, in Matière et Mémoire, published in 1896, theorized in philosophical terms the idea that time is relative. He theorized the idea of la durée, that is the duration, by which time is a flowing continuity. It is not a sequence of separate points. So we should stop thinking of time as a moment after the other, but as he said, which is the idea of historical time, but time is mostly psychological. So psychological time is internal, it is subjective, it is measured not by the clock, but by the relative emotional intensity of a moment. Okay, so there are moments that seem to us that are eternal, but they're just moments for the clock. Whereas historical time, it is external, it is linear, it is measured by the distance traveled by the pendulum, traveled by the clock. And they're both important, and they're both the same to us. Novelists at this point decided to explore psychological time. In physics, Albert Einstein theorized or published one of the most important essays on his theories of relativity. Was published in 1905, and basically he said that time and space are subjective dimensions. This is really a revolution for a precise science such as physics, and you'll be going deeper into this with your physics teacher. But in any case, imagine the old Victorians being said that the time they measured and the space they traveled was not so objective as they believed it was. Last but not least, anthropology gave a very important contribution, because James Frazer, in his huge work, The Golden Bough, which it took him many years to be finished and published, using also some ideas taken from psychology, figured out that there is a mythical background common to Christianity and pagan culture. That is, he put together Christianity and paganism saying that there is no absolute truth of religion and there is no absolute system of ethics. Okay, an ethical system is not just the one inside or within the Christian beliefs. There are no good or bad societies. Behaviors depend on where we live, on our environment. And so he takes a more relativist standpoint. That is, if we all have a background that we transform into a mythical way to analyze reality, then all cultures have their own value and their own right to exist.